Hi everyone, it's Danny. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another design team layout for Confessions of a Paper Addict Cutfiles, and I'm doing something a little different. As you can see, I'm in my traveler's notebook. I'm working on my December daily from last year, still, from 2018, and I'm up to day 20. That is this photo of my son. We were at Harvey Norman, I'm pretty sure, and they had this Santa chair set up with trees all around it for photos, but there was no one there, so we just went and hopped in the chair and snapped a pic. And because I have all those tall trees on either side, I thought this cut file would be perfect. This is the December daily cut file for the Christmas tree one. It's specifically made for December daily. It's sized to be 6x8, but obviously I'm in a standard size traveler's notebook, which is slightly different, so I have just resized it to suit. So what I've done is just trace the inside of a couple of the trees there, using the cut file as a guide. And now I'm using my cutting mat, and I have just flipped my book over, so I am cutting out the trees. And I'm just going just slightly outside of the pencil lines. And in a minute you will see why. So for the next tree I realized there was a much easier way to do this, and that's just to pick your cutting mat up and slot it in between the two pages. Much easier. So that is just a craft knife I'm using, a small hobby knife. Just being careful to cut not towards your fingers. Here we go, pretty much done. I'm just carefully, really carefully cutting that out. That's why it took so long. Just checking the fit there. It lines up perfectly. Really happy with that. So now I've pulled out this acetate. I love this acetate. I only have one 12x12 sheet of it, and I have used it for quite a few projects now because I'm trying to make it last. But it's really pretty gold foil stars. It's by American Crafts. I'm pretty sure I got it from Spotlight. But I'm going to go ahead and fill in those two trees with this acetate. And the reason I cut through the paper of my insert is because I kind of want it to be like a little window peeking through, so you can see like straight through the page. It's a really cool effect, I think. So I'm just going to glue that acetate straight onto the back of my cut file, just in a big chunk like that. Now the trick for using this glue and trim technique with acetate is just to make sure to use very little glue. Don't use too much or it'll seep out and squish all over your acetate, and wait till it's fully dry before you start cutting. So I did pause the camera and let this dry for quite a bit, and then I came back, and now I'm trimming off all my excess. I'm just carefully going around the edges of the cut files, and I would definitely recommend doing this before you put any of the background paper on. So what I mean by that is I'm going to go ahead and back all these trees. So I'm going to do all the trees first, and then I'm going to back the whole thing with a separate pattern paper, so all the little gaps between the trees are filled as well. It's just the easiest way to do that, I find. There we go. Ta-da! Look at that, little windows. How cool is that? I've also snipped the top of that bottom tree away from the cut file so that I can slip my photo underneath it, just like that. Just gives an extra bit of dimension, a look of layers. Really enjoying that. I'm going to trim my photo just a little bit. I don't want to trim it too much because I don't want to trim off all those trees, which is the whole point of using this cut file, but I did want it to not overlap the edges of the cut file too much. It was just a little bit wide for the page. Now I'm pulling out some papers to back the cut file with. I'm using Kaiser Crafts Wonderland collection. It was one of last year's Christmas collections, and it's very minty, tealy, bluey greens. So I mostly use greens on this double page spread. So you can see I've already done the left side of this page. There's a little bit of red on there, but it's mostly green. So I want to stick to that color scheme, especially as I'm doing trees, which are obviously green. And I have just little pops of red, like in the carpet in that photo is red, and a couple of the trees on the left side are red. So there we go, that fits nicely just right across the middle there. Just lining this up carefully because I want to cut that part of the photo out. So I am just taking my pencil and sort of sliding it underneath the edge of the cut file so it just goes underneath, and then I'm going to cut that out. And once I layer my acetate Christmas tree over the top, it will be see-through. See, perfect little window. I love how this turned out. It's so cool. Really, really simple effect, but I really like the interest it brings to your December daily, especially as most of my December daily is pretty simple. I've tried to keep it quite simple and not go too fancy with my techniques, but this didn't take too long at all. Just really takes a little bit of pre-planning and thinking about what you want to do. So now I'm just backing the rest of my cut file with pattern paper. I'm just taking the cut file and tracing around the edge on the back and tracing it onto the back of my pattern paper and then cutting it out. Again, just using tacky glue to glue my shapes down. Perfect. And I will skip to, I won't make you watch the whole thing. There we go. So I've just used a variety of light and dark greens, and then I've used a lighter minty green color all over the background. And I haven't backed the whole background. You can see that big chunk in the middle that is missing because my photo is going to cover that. There's no point in wasting paper. So I've just glued that whole thing straight onto my page of my traveler's notebook. And I'm just carefully getting my photo positioned so that the little window on the tree lines up with that notch that I've cut out. And once I have it exactly where I want it, I'm just gluing down. Ta-da! Love how that overlaps. It just really adds some interest. I'm pretty close to finished now. I kept this pretty simple, like I said, because those acetate trees really add a lot just on their own. There you go. There's the back. You can see straight through. It's so cool. So don't forget to go check out the Confessions of a Paper Addict Facebook group this month. We have a Craftmas countdown happening. There's something happening every day. There's lots of freebies. There's new releases. There are games. There are challenges. It's super fun. You definitely don't want to miss any of that. So if you're not already a member, check the description box below for the link. So now I'm just jazzing up this left side page because I thought it was a little plain after I'd done all the beautiful tree cut file on the other side. So I'm just adding some phrase stickers in some of the blank spaces. I've just used a couple of different kinds of craft Christmas sticker sheets there. There we go. That'll do. Good enough. So now I'm going through and I'm just taking some scratch white cardstock and cutting some strips for my journaling. I'm literally just going to write Santa's chair, Harvey Norman. Yeah, there's not a lot of story. We were shopping and he hopped up and it was a cute photo, so yeah. So I'm just going to trim those and glue those straight onto the background. I could have added, I mean, it's hard with TN spreads because they're so small. I could have added ephemera and whatnot, but I would have covered up either a lot of my photo or a lot of the cut file, and I really love that cut file background, so I didn't want to cover up, I wanted to cover as little of that as I had to. So I'm just popping these strips there. I'm going to put this one just across the bottom of the photo there. Okay. And the very last thing to go on will be my number. So I've just punched this out of a Advent sheet and I'm just using some double-sided tape to stick it down. I'm just struggling with placement because I don't want to cover up any of those trees. I'm putting it as far right as I can without cutting off any of the number so that you can see as much of that tree as possible. And that is everything. Here come the close-ups. Thank you so much for joining me and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!